So, panelists, starting with Joseph Boateng, Chief Investment Officer of the Casey Family Program. Joseph, you're a seasoned African investor. You regularly visit the continent. What's your view on what needs to happen to further de-risk investment and come to a more enabling environment for institutional investors?
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara. You've said it all in your opening remarks, but I'll try and piece it together how I do it. So I work for Casey Family Programs, which is a private foundation founded by Jim Casey of UPS. So those brown trucks that you see in your parking lots and so forth, when you see it, remember Casey Family Programs. The focus is on improving the well-being of children in the United States, foster kids. But as you can tell, my team and myself, we invest globally. Basically, wherever the brown trucks or the brown airplanes fly or the trucks go, we invest in those continents and regions. So how do we de-risk investments? I want to start from the questions that I get asked when I go into investment committee meetings, because that's where the risk starts from. So it's not just about the environment, the investment, and the GPs, the guarantees, and so forth. We look at all that. But I'll start with expectations. We need to tell our story, in the continent better. If we don't, somebody else would. Typically, what I hear is that, it's more or less like doing charity work on the continent. You expect 31% IRRs and so forth, versus, maybe 20 or 15 to 20. So there's a gap in terms of realistic expectations right there. And I've heard it from LPs, I've heard it from managers, that I'll get you 30% plus because the continent is deemed risky. One of the panelists talked about if you're reading the Wall Street Journal or looking at Fox News for news on Africa, you're probably missing something. So the biggest risk for me is the expectations. We need reasonable expectations. If you're expecting to get 31% plus, I'm sorry you'll be disappointed. So even when you deliver, what you notice is that you get 20%, which is great. As an example, you're still going to be measured against 33, and it doesn't work. So realistic expectations is crucial. The other point I like to note is that when you invest in the continent, we are profit-seeking, but you're also looking for impact. Impact on the ground here, impact for the thousands, hundreds and thousands of foster children that we take care of in the United States. So to me, it all comes together. It's not charity. Realistic expectations is a starting point. It presumes that you have staff or you have people you are working with who understand what takes place on the continent. I've been an early investor in the continent in all asset classes, I would say, and I would say that we've made money. I've invested in Asia as well, sort of mixed. Some made money, some didn't. But part of the issue in terms of getting to know what happens on the continent is visiting it. So myself and my colleagues, we come to the region a lot. This would be my third this year alone, because we need to understand what is going on. We need boots on the ground. The same applies to the managers. If you're a consultant sitting in New York or Ohio and you haven't made any trip here trying to sell me an investment idea here, guess what? It goes nowhere. And I wouldn't have to do it. My staff would do it. So talking about how do we de-risk it? Again, realistic expectations, people who understand the nature of the deal, the risks that comes with it. There's good part, there's bad part. We need it all. And you cannot totally de-risk the investment, otherwise you get nothing, because the risk-free rate to me, the last time I checked, was giving me practically nothing. Actually, it's below the rate of inflation. So I want to touch on 3 main points briefly within my 3 to 5 minutes. 1 would be on the investments, 2, the enabling environment, and 3, the GPLP combo. On the investments, at the end of the day, no amount of structuring, no amount of guarantees will save me if it's a bad investment, if it is complicated. My biggest, safety net will be in the quality of the assets. The structuring definitely helps. I've looked at structures like, the AB structure, the first loss, guarantees from governments. You take the risk. Me, the investor, maybe I take the upside. Does it really work? Maybe yes, maybe not. but the quality of the assets, getting non-recourse loans, simplicity, transparency, key. What I worry most about projects on the continent is not political risk, I would say, and it's not even currency. It depends on the type of investment. To me, it's execution risk. The risk that the project will not be completed. The risk that my capital will be locked up. And every day that it is locked up, guess what? I'm losing money. So simplicity, transparency, execution risk, and structuring with the focus of mitigating risk is important. And above all, having examples to talk to these points is key, so that it's not just taking a textbook and reading it. We've read enough. I believe there are enough theories around, enough white papers around. We get sick and tired of it. It's time for action. About the environment, we had very good points made this morning. One was about investor protection and sovereign guarantees, which we like, to the extent that it lowers the cost of capital and it increases the risk-adjusted returns. I love it. But when you have these protections in place and they are not enforced, who cares? Nobody really cares. And we've had cases, and this isn't Africa, I'm talking about examples in other regions I've experienced, where the books look great, but when it comes to enforcing your rights, if you want to wait 2 decades to get your day in court, I don't want to wait 2 decades. So in most cases, how we interact with the local partners and how we get things done, it's key. So the guarantees, helpful, there's, be it, local partners' involvement is crucial, especially if I have a local partner of the balance sheet, I love it. The involvement of the pension funds, excellent, because here we're talking about skin in the game. If I'm a government official, I'm not sure I want to mess up with my pension. And actually, I'll take even the pension fund involvement over just government guarantees, because you all know a government would be in power 4 years, 8 years, they are gone. The next government could undo everything. I'm not talking about the United States, just in case you're wondering. Not intended, but that's an example that you can look to. Now, in terms of the GPLP, if you're an LP sitting and I'm talking about my colleagues on endowments and foundations, I've also worked in pensions. I used to manage a pension for Johnson & Johnson and Xerox. So if I'm looking at Africa with, the United States prism or lenses, I could be missing something, could be foggy, right? You're talking about you have to be truly long-term. If you're looking about going in, J-Care, 4 or 5 years, I'm out and I make X amount of money, you'll be disappointed. So that long-term focus, understanding the investments you're making is key. And if you're a manager, as I mentioned before, boots on the ground. We need seasoned, gray-haired, not that gray hair alone, that's it, but seasoned GPs who have actually done the work on the continent, who have the battle scars, battle tested to talk to it. Not just fly over. You come in, you check out. It doesn't work. And I'm talking about real examples here. We just don't have the time to go through. So the LP, the commitment, the GP, the fact that you've done it. And above all, I was saying, let's be realistic with the return expectations. I'm going through an asset review right now. Now, to get to my 5% real rate of return is PE, infrastructure, so we're in a good place. But then again, you're only in a good place if you can execute. So execution risk is key for me. I'll hand off to my colleagues in the interest of time, and we can touch base on this with the Q&A.
Well, that you can, you're battle tested. It's clear. I think that's really helpful.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.